28. So this is Canto 3, Chapter 2, and text 28. The chapter is called Remembrance of Lord Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayit Nastapreshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So, Canto 3, Chapter 2, Text 28. Komarim
Komarim.
Darshayam
Darshayams.
Cheshtam
Cheshtam.
Prekshaniyam
Prikshaniyam.
Vraja Okasam
Raja Okasam.
Rudan
Rudan.
Iva
Eva.
Hasan
Hasan.
Mugdha
Mugdha.
Balasimha
Balasingha.
Avalokana
Avalokana.
Komarim Darshayam Cheshtam
Komarim Darshayams Cheshtam.
Prekshaniyam Vrajokasam
Prikshaniyam Brajaokasam.
Rudaniva Hasan Mugdha
Udaniva Hasan Mugdha.
Balasimha Avalokana
Balasimha Valokana.
Komarim Darshayam Cheshtam
Komarim Darshayams Cheshtam.
Prekshaniyam Vrajokasam
Prikshaniyam Brajaokasam.
Rudaniva Hasan Mugdha
Udaniva Hasan Mugdha.
Balasimha Avalokana
Balasimha Valokana.
Komarim Darshayam Cheshtam
Komarim Darshayams Cheshtam.
Prekshaniyam Vrajokasam
Prikshaniyam Brajaokasam.
Rudaniva Hasan Mugdha
Udan Iva Hasan Mugdha.
Balasimha Avalokana
Balasimha Valokana. Komarim Darshayams Cheshtam.
Komarim Darshayam Cheshtam
Prikshaniyam Brajaokasam.
Prekshaniyam Vrajokasam
Udaniva Hasan Mugdha.
Rudaniva Hasan Mugdha
Balasimha Valokana.
Balasimha Avalokana. Is there anyone else who wants to chant?
Komaram Darshayam Shishtam
Komarim Darshayam Cheshtam
Prekshaniyam Varjokasham
Prekshaniyam Vrajokasam
Rudaniva Hasan Mugdha
Rudaniva Hasan Mugdha
Balasimha Valokana
Balasimha Avalokana
Komarim Darshayam Chestam
Komarim Darshayam Cheshtam
Prekshaniyam Rajokasam
Prekshaniyam Vrajokasam
Rudaniva Hasan Mukta
Rudaniva Hasan Mugdha
Balasimha Valokana.
Balasimha Avalokana. Komarim,
Komarim.
just suitable to childhood.
Just suitable to childhood.
Darshayam,
Darshayan.
while showing.
While showing.
Cheshtam,
Cheshtam.
activities.
Activities.
Prekshaniyam,
Prekshaniyam,
worthy to be seen.
worthy to be seen.
Vraja Okasam,
Vraja Okasam,
by the inhabitants of the land of Vrindavan.
by the inhabitants of the land of Vrindavan.
Rudam,
Rudan,
crying.
crying.
Iva,
Eva,
just like.
just like.
Hassan,
Hassan,
laughing.
laughing.
Mugda,
Mugda,
struck with wonder.
struck with wonder.
Bala Simha,
Balhasingha,
lion cub.
lion cub.
Avalokana,
Avalokana,
looking like that.
looking like that.
Translation. When the Lord displayed his activities that's just suitable for childhood, he was visible only to the residents of Vrindavan. Sometimes he would cry and sometimes laugh, just like a child, and when so doing, he would appear like a lion cub. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. If anyone wants to enjoy the childhood pastimes of the Lord, then he has to follow in the footsteps of the residents of Vraja, like Nanda, Upananda, and other parental inhabitants. A child may insist on having something and cry like anything to get it, disturbing the whole neighborhood. And then immediately after achieving the desired thing, he laughs. Such crying and laughing is enjoyable to the parents and elderly members of the family. So the Lord would simultaneously cry and laugh in his way and merge his devotee parents in the humor of transcendental pleasure. These incidents are enjoyable only by the residents of Raja, like Nanda Maharaj, and not by the impersonalist worshippers of Brahman or Paramatma. Sometimes, when attacked in the forest by demons, Krishna would appear struck with wonder, but he looked on them like the cub of a lion and killed them. His childhood companions would also be struck with wonder, and when they came back home, they would narrate the story to their parents, and everyone would appreciate the qualities of their Krishna. Child Krishna did not belong only to his parents, Nanda and Yashoda. He was the son of all the elderly inhabitants of Vrindavan and the friend of all contemporary boys and girls. Everyone loved Krishna. He was the life and soul of everyone, including the animals, the cows, and the calves. Om Ainanati Mirandasya Vyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in a darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasketya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are reading here the remembrance of Lord Krishna, and in the morning my wife was asking me like, which verse will you read? And I was like, it's a bad verse. There is like this small Krishna, the pastimes in Vrindavan, and there is nothing like philosophical. But that was my victim story. So there is quite a lot of it. So I will try to go through a few things that I noticed here. So yes, so one of the things I noted in the purport is that Prabhupada describes the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, and he says, sometimes when attacked in the forest by the demons, Krishna would appear struck with wonder. So Krishna also like experienced wonder when he was like experiencing himself, like all the creation. So if we have the same chance. Like I was reminded of the story of the snake demon who opened his mouth very wide, and the covered boys and went inside, and for a moment Krishna was like struck, and then he proceeded to save the covered boys and kill the demon. So yes, so we have the same chance, like to cultivate being struck by the wonders of Krishna, because those wonders are like all around us. Like for example, with my wife, like yesterday, I think we discussed the wonder of rain. So rain, right? We basically need rain in order that we can live. So the rain is very important to our life, and like yeah, and like for me, it's like inspiring the balance of the nature. So sometimes it seems like there is too much rain. Sometimes it seems there is like so little rain, but it's still the life is going on. It's not like we would have rain for like 3 years straight, or we would have like drought for like 3 years straight. So and there are like these changes of the sun, of the hot air, and of the rain also. So that's like the wonder of nature, that the trees grow, that plants grow, produce some fruits, and we can give them to the Lord. So that's one thing. And Ladini was also sharing about her inspiration from the rain, and it was like, okay, like when we go on Sankirtan, Krishna sends the rain, so it can rain on the garden, and it happens quite a bit that we or they would go on the Sankirtan, some members of our temple, and the day after we would have rain, even to that point that I was saying, I don't need the rain now. So in this way, we can rebuild our relationship with Krishna, and like each and every one of us can find his personal relationship. Like, yes, it can be like through the nature, it can be like yeah, like, but still we should see like the Lord behind. So it's not like just the nature is great. We should also appreciate, or like at least ask, who is behind this nature? Who is the source of the nature? And the answer is offered in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, and also like as we like shortly discussed this verse with my wife, there is this question by Narada Muni to Maharaj Yudhishthir, no, it's not. It's it's Yamaraj asking Maharaj Yudhishthir, and Yamaraj asked him, "What is the most wonderful thing within this world?" And Maharaj Yudhishthir replied, "Ahani ahani bhutani gacchanta yama alayam sheshat stavarami chanti kim ascharyam atah param." And Prabhupada writes, "Hundreds and thousands of living entities meet death at every moment, but the foolish living being nonetheless thinks himself deathless and does not prepare for death. This is the most wonderful thing in this world. Everyone has to die because everyone is fully under the control of material nature, yet everyone thinks that he is independent, that whatever he likes he can do, that he will never meet death, but live forever, and so on." So that's quite a wonderful thing, right? Like, I go through this life and I think, okay, I have some plan, right? And I will wake up tomorrow and the day after. Maybe I have some short-term plans, like for this week. Maybe I have some long-term plans, like what I would achieve, what I would like to achieve in a year. What's my vision, right? And still it can be, it can end very quickly. So that's like the most wonderful thing in this world. Like, everyone thinks, okay, I have so much time and I can do whatever I want and I will not die. Like, even though we see all the things are dying or in the process of dying, because some things are in the process of being created, and that means that some things are in the process of being destroyed. And still, I don't get the point to like maybe really wake me up. So it's a process, and the goal of this process is also described in this verse and purport. The goal is that Krishna becomes our life and soul. That's the words that Prabhupada uses. So I was researching a little bit, like how does Prabhupada use these words like life and soul. So I will read a little bit from what Prabhupada said. So Prabhupada said, for example, if we want to be Krishna conscious, we shall fix up our mind on Krishna. And how to become fixed up? That art will be given to you by the spiritual master. Therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in connection with the explanation of this verse, Vyavasayatmika buddhi. So he says Vyavasayatmika buddhi means to take the words of the spiritual master as life and soul. That is Vyavasaya. That is called Vyavasayatmika buddhi. And Vishwanath Chakravarti says that whatever I am ordered by the spiritual master, that is my life and soul. I don't care for liberation. My only business is to serve my spiritual master. And in the song, you have just sung, Ye prasade, what's that? And some devotee replies, and then Prabhupada goes on. So this is our process, to depend on Krishna. Depend does not mean I shall remain idle. Depend means to work according to the direction of the Shastra. Shastra, Sadhu Shastra Guru Vakya Chitete Korya Aikya. Depend does not mean now let me sleep and Krishna will do everything, depend on Krishna. No, not like that. Krishna never advised Arjuna that you sleep on this chariot. No, he never said that. He said, you must have to fight. Yogesvara man anusmara. Fighting you have to do, but you always think of me. This is the success. Not that depend on Krishna means I have not to, nothing to do. So Prabhupada is making some distinctions. So depending on Krishna does not mean that I will just sit and wait for the things to happen. It means to do our best, to do our 100%, and still trust that trust the process given by the spiritual master by serving the spiritual master. And like as our home turns to a temple in like it's like a month now, so like we discussed, like what makes the temple activities successful. And it seems, my understanding is that if the devotees in the temple really want self-realization, that they really want at the end of this life to come home, to go to Krishna, that creates an atmosphere that the devotees or those who visit the temple can benefit from, like this strong faith in the process, like this vyavasayatmika buddhi, like because the, like, in order to like Krishna become my life and soul, I need to have a strong faith. And strong faith means like strong faith in the spiritual master who guides us through his example and instructions. And yes, and also like strong faith in the philosophy, like in like somewhere Prabhupada writes, like we should have the understanding, like the practical understanding of the difference of the soul and the body, like so that we can keep the strong faith in Krishna consciousness. Because the more I'm engrossed in the sense gratification, the less chance I have to like fix my mind, because the mind will be always distracted. I either by seeking something pleasing or by trying to escape something displeasing. So that's the basis that Prabhupada gives us through his books and through his teachings, like the classes and all the things that he gave us. And of course he can still guide us. So that's like how to come to the stage that Krishna becomes the life and soul of our life, of us. So we try to make the spiritual, to dedicate to the spiritual master life and our soul, and through this process we get connected to Krishna. I want to read some more. Yes. Yes, like in this text and purport, also a little bit Krishna's form is described. So I was looking at some quotes from Prabhupada about like Krishna's form and relating to Krishna's form. So I will read. So this is from the class on the Bhagavad Gita from 1966. So Prabhupada is saying, he comes just to being visible to our eyes, just like this picture. This picture is not, it's not to be taken that he is not God, he is picture. The picture of God is also God. Picture of Krishna is Krishna. The sound, name Krishna, that is also Krishna. But just to give us facility to understand. You do not think that this picture of Krishna is painted by some artist's imagination. No, it is not imagination. There is description in the scripture what is the form of Krishna. So according to the description, these pictures are drawn. It is not imagination. So this form is factual. It is not imagination. I wanted to research some incidences where Prabhupada talks about the picture of Krishna, like because like that's the question, like Krishna somehow someone painted Krishna. So how we should see this picture, and the response is like the picture of Krishna is Krishna. So if Krishna is painted based on the Vedic instructions, based on how he really is, we should see the picture of Krishna as Krishna. And in a sense, yes, and yes. So I will read some more. There is a nice discussion like between Prabhupada and one devotee's mother and the sister. So Prabhupada says, simple thing, you chant Krishna, easy thing, and you remain with Krishna. Where is the difficulty? Because Krishna and Krishna's name, Krishna's form, this picture is here. Then Krishna is here. You have to realize that Krishna is so kind because you cannot see Krishna now with your material eyes. So Krishna has appeared before you so that you can see him with your material eyes. This is Krishna's mercy. But he is Krishna. Krishna is everything. God is everything. So why the picture of God is not God? We say God is omnipotent, omnipresent. So why Krishna is not present in this picture? Then what is the meaning of omnipresent? If he is omnipresent, he is present also within his picture. And that's a fact. He's present everywhere. Now, to become convenient for you, he has appeared like a picture. And the sister of the devotee responds, but you don't need to see the picture. with his omnipotence, you don't need to have the picture, Prabhupada. No, because you, without seeing him, you do not develop Krishna consciousness. You require to see him. So he has appeared before you so that you can see him. That is his mercy, so that you see him and you think of him. Manmana Bhava Madbhakta. You see him and think of him. That is the meaning of picture. You cannot say, I have not seen God. Here is God. You see God's picture here in the temple. In the Shastra, description is there. Just like in the Brahma Samhita, it is said, Venum Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayata. Krishna is playing on his flute. That is the information in the Vedas. Here, he is playing on flute. Venum Kvanantam Aravinda Dalaya. His eyes are like lotus petal. You see the description in the Vedas and the picture. The same. It is not imagination. It is in the Vedas. Vedas will give you information. Then, Surabhi Abhipalayantam. There are cows, Krishna, very much fond of cows. So where is stated in the Vedas about Krishna, that is depicted. It is not imagination. Not that we have imagined something like this is like. No, it is by the Vedic knowledge. So you will find Krishna's form like this everywhere. In India, there are millions of temples. Everywhere you will find this. So that's I think a nice explanation of the significance of Krishna's picture. It's for us, so we can employ our senses to think of him more and more. Okay. Okay, I will stop here and we can discuss. Kumarim darshayam cheshtam prekshanyam rajokasam rudani vahasan mugda bala sigma valokana. When the Lord displayed his activities just suitable for childhood, he was visible only to the residents of Vrindavan. Sometimes he would cry and sometimes laugh, just like a child. And while so doing, he would appear like a lion cub. Thank you very much for your presence. And now, if you want to share who wants to share something.
Hare Krishna, Yogesvara Prabhu. Thanks for revealing the philosophy behind this pastime verse. So I get that at first you felt reactive to. So I appreciate your vulnerably sharing that. Yeah. I like how you go about the picture. I mean, it relates because okay, so it's maybe easy. Generally, we start with the name, right? Name, then form, then pastimes, then qualities. So the name of Krishna is non-different. So similarly with the form, the picture. And so that's true for all spirit, right? So for the pure devotee, just in very practical ways, right? So like the Morti or the picture of Srila Prabhupada or the Acharyas on the altar. They're not like representations. I mean, they're not just representations. Prabhupada is fully present. So it's an important point. Actually, about 20 years ago this year, I had different correspondences with some intellectual, philosophical, Shastric, Brahminical communities. And I was expressing in correspondence a different point, but just as an aside, as I just mentioned, like Prabhupada's present in his picture, and these Shastric Pandit intellectuals, they responded, Prabhupada's present in his picture, that's a novel theory. So I was like shocked. And so I said, like, well, if Prabhupada's not fully present in his picture, then we're doing idol worship, which is not the Vaishnava Bhakti Yoga program. And Prabhupada makes it very clear in his teachings that yes, the pure devotee is able to be present everywhere through his pictures, through his photos, like that. And that's only possible for one who's not in any way influenced by the modes of nature. So that's relevant too, because in different places we could find, okay, we put the picture of this one and that one on the altar that Prabhupada established. And of course, as far as adding pictures to the altar that Prabhupada established after Prabhupada's disappearance, Prabhupada never gave any instruction to do so. But if someone chooses to do so, okay. But then if like the person who the photo is of, or it has any tinges of material consciousness, even something slight like enjoying being praised or something like that, then it's idol worship. So this non-difference of the form, the picture with the person, that's possible only on that Shuddha Sattva platform. So just thought to expand that part of the philosophy.
Yes, thanks. Yes, yeah, like I feel that I should share something. Yes, yeah, like thank you for yeah, like you've experienced someone to being struck with wonder when you share, okay, like Prabhupada is present in his picture. Yes, like I had the devotees from Ukraine here in May, right? Yes, yes. Basically, almost for the whole May, I hosted them, and like somehow we came to the discussion of like the question of the link to the parampara and like the Prabhupada and like that. So like I've experienced like some of these talks, and like I want to place questions first. So I choose the yeah. So I was asking them, and I was listening, and showing my understanding, not like that what they say is true, but just understanding what they are thinking. So I can somehow link those things. And yes, so they were thinking, and yeah, like I just was asking questions, and like fine, like you place the picture of this person there. So do you think that he is a pure devotee? And they replied, no. And I was like, oh, but that's not my understanding of like Prabhupada's teachings, like it's not there. And like Prabhupada so many times says that the link to the parampara and Krishna needs to be a pure devotee, and it makes sense because you could worship me then, right? So fine. So we, at least I got to know something, and they yeah, and then I simply shared my understanding. So yes, so these are the requirements for the spiritual master. Yes, I did not want to try to convince them, because it's like usually, well, I did not feel there is room for that, so I just shared, and yeah, like, and it's sad because I have a strong feeling that they are getting cheated. But if you say to someone that he's getting cheated and he is not prepared to receive it, it will not help, probably. So
Yeah, and it could provoke an unproductive reactive response. And so I hear it. What for you, it wasn't about convincing. It sounds to me from what you described that you maybe supported them to be in the question, atato brahma jigyasa, to begin to ask some questions and open up to some alternate perspectives, and to at least to begin to think about some things.
yes, thanks. Anandini.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your class. And when you were sharing, I was remembering when we spent time with you, you were sharing about your temple, and when the center is like everyone's helping each other in self-realization, and with this intention that this life, after this life, I'm going to go back to God and develop God consciousness now. I experienced the power of that. So I was remembering that. And what you just shared, I'm curious, would you share what you shared with the Ukrainian devotees? Like for me to get some inspiration, what is it that you shared? How did you share?
Yeah, yes, and I think I like I think the most important things in that communication was that I wanted to know from them first. So because if like someone asks me like, who is your guru? I don't think there is a good response. Like, at least it depends. So my response is I start asking them questions, because they usually want to share about themselves. So they start like replying, and then after they stop, which can take 20-40 minutes, I just share my stance, and like one of the main points, like okay, like that that I can still try to serve Prabhupada as my spiritual master now and here without needing his physical presence. So that's like the main point that I want, yes, to put there, and then it's like it depends sort of if I see that they would like to know like more, like I can start sharing about the gaps in the disciplic succession that like the gaps mean the physical gap that the spiritual master and the disciple do not need to like physically meet at one point in the space in order to like the disciplic succession to work, because they usually have like an idea and that I get to understand by placing questions, right? Usually like understanding based on the body, like that I need to be with someone, that my body needs to be like with the body of the spiritual master. And if it is, it's nice, but it's not required for the process to work, because the process of is spiritual. So it's like, talking about the stuff that Prabhupada talks, like I think like after I'm listening for like 40 or 60 minutes, like I think you get a good good taste, for what to share and what not to share. I yes, so that's kind of my approach that I'm practicing, because if someone asks me like, who's your guru? Like, okay, like I can reply, like, what do you mean by guru? And then we can discuss. And then yeah. So replying by question is, I think, a good strategy.
Like so you're listening to them in order to understand where they're at, and then to understand how you can share so they understand. And,
yes.
yes. So you share. So what you share is about Srila Prabhupada being your link to the parampara. And a question that I have is, because I never thought about it so much, like, so someone puts the picture of some guru who is not a pure devotee on the altar, and yet an argument, could be, well, but he's not pure, but I worship him, and he's serving he's serving Srila Prabhupada, and so what's wrong about it?
Yes.
It's like serving the servant of the servant of the servant. So
yes, yeah, it sounds like, right, that it's not the process that Prabhupada gives. That's like a simple thing, because I'm trying to follow the process that Prabhupada gives. And if somewhere, Prabhupada would share, like, fine, you can put some pictures of the personalities you like there. So I would do that maybe, but I don't see a single instance where, like, Prabhupada says, like, you can put like a picture of this practicing devotee, that practicing devotee there, and it's all fine. So because it's a very, like, it's a spiritual process. So if I apply my mind, and with my mind I'm trying to like change the process, that this will not be a spiritual process. That will be some sense gratification, basically.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'd like to. Oh.
I was saying, I just for something to interject there. That like, okay, so one thing is like, okay, trying to illustrate how what they're doing is kind of not valid, but even like, okay, what you're doing is fine. Okay, you want to add this picture, that picture. All right, but at least accept, respect, honor, accept, respect, and honor the system that Prabhupada established. Okay, so let's not even talk about what you're doing. No, I'm adding this one and that one. Okay, great, you have great inspiration to do that. All right. But so Prabhupada established an altar. So at least let's accept, respect, and accept those who are simply serving and worshiping the altar that Prabhupada established without addition. Let's not make that wrong. So let's accept that. Okay, now, okay, so once, and because, and there's no good reason not to accept it. That's what Prabhupada established, as Yogesvara emphasized. That as far as instructions Prabhupada gave to change and add to the altar after his disappearance, there are no such instructions. He never gave any like that. So that could, for some, that could get them to think, how come we're not doing it? But even, no, but I'm sure what I'm doing is right because I had, this picture and that picture. Fine. At least accept, respect, and honor what Prabhupada established as far as the altar, as far as pranams. Same with pranams. Prabhupada gave no instructions to add any pranams after his disappearance. All right. So now once that's accepted, respected, and honored, then we can talk about, okay, like based on the philosophy that Yogesvara presented in the class. All right. So philosophically, it seems to me, based on Prabhupada's teachings, the Siddhanta Prabhupada gave, there is a problem if we're adding a photo to the altar of someone who's still tinged by the most material nature. There's ample letters from Prabhupada. There's ample lectures and letters and conversations where Prabhupada says, no, if someone's tinged by the most material nature, they're not non-different from their picture. To go to the Old Testament, that's called idol worship. We're worshiping something material as if it's spiritual. Every personality that Prabhupada placed on the altar, Srimati Radharani, Lord Chaitanya, Gadadhar Pandit, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, they're completely spiritual, completely pure. So to put the picture of someone who's not spiritual, not completely spiritual, that's a deviation from Prabhupada. I don't care about Prabhupada, but okay, that's fine. But if we want to follow Prabhupada, that's a deviation. And the someone says, oh, but the picture I'm putting on, he or she is a pure devotee. Great, wonderful. And fine, okay. At least let's accept, honor, and respect the altar that Prabhupada gave without additions.
Thank you. I think I'm getting what I was looking for, like the clarity I was looking for, and maybe I can express it. and that's like, so there's one thing, like the system Srila Prabhupada gave. That's one thing, and then there's also a principle behind it, like or an instruction behind it. That if we worship someone who is not fully pure, that's like that's how we get cheated, because it's not going to work. Like our prayer to that picture are not going to land where they're supposed to land, because it's just a picture. And if it's a pure personality, then my prayer to the picture is the prayer to the personality, to the guru, to the pure devotee, to Krishna. It's going to land. Is my understanding accurate?
I appreciate how you reflected. You got the practice and the principle, and just to follow up on how Yogesvara responded about, you mentioned about servant of the servant. Yeah, of course, servant of the servant. And then Yogesvara responded, yeah, but the process isn't to start putting all these pictures on the altar. So, so sure, here's a senior servant of Prabhupada and I'm inspired by him or her. Yeah, so let me hear their classes and let me prepare prasad and offer them prasad and let me ask if there's some way I can support their mission for Srila Prabhupada, supporting each other to cultivate a relationship with Prabhupada is the current link. So the principle of servant of the servant of the servant, completely yes. And how to manifest that principle, that's another question.
Thank you.
Bhakta Devon?
Hi Krishna, thanks. The Hare Krishna. The conversations really got my blood pumping. I'm not sure why exactly. Maybe I've heard this kind of conversation before and my heart wasn't pumping, my blood wasn't pumping like it is this morning, some sensitivity this morning, I don't know, but I'm sharing that. And I noticed that started for me when you read from Prabhupada. He was sharing, I think, with the sister, the mother and the sister, and then he shared, yeah, Krishna is non-different from his name, and like that, in the sound of his name, in the picture, right? And I yeah, I noticed like oh, I don't share like that with people. Like I don't know the excuse me, I'm on my phone and I was getting a phone call. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So okay, so what was happening for me, Prabhupada was sharing with the mother and sister, and he was sharing about the name non-different and the picture non-different from Krishna himself and why the picture. And I thought for myself, like, I don't know the context, but I don't share like that. That like, I personally just felt uncomfortable. Oh, I probably wouldn't share something like that because like, well, okay, I don't know the context. I don't know the exposure this mother and sister have, but I mean, I was under the impression, okay, their son's involved in Prabhupada's movement, and then this is the mother and sister, and they're getting some exposure now. And for me, it's like that's obviously both the core and the essence. It's part of the core and essence of the philosophy is Krishna's non-difference in the form. It's vital, and at the same time, it's like it's so deep and esoteric, kind of in a sense of like coming from material consciousness, coming from wherever this mother. See, I don't know the context, but I imagine myself kind of preaching, and then thinking like, wow, yeah, I mean, worried. I was, yeah, I was reflecting on like my heart's beating. What's that about? Oh, I'm afraid I'll look crazy. I'm afraid people just think I'm crazy if I start telling them, oh, this is God and this is the picture, right? This is non-different. So as that conversation happened between Prabhupada and the mother and sister, and he explained, yeah, you need to see him. This is his mercy. And I'm going like, okay, I see where this is going. You know, this is going. This could be helpful. So, I mean, I'm making distinctions about like what Prabhupada does and where I'm at, as far as like sharing with people and where they're at. And then when we got to your piece, Yogesvara Prabhu, about how you shared by answering with a question, I go, wow, that's really meeting me where I'm at. That's so perfect, because then, yeah, it just brought my mind back to a calm, my heart and my blood, my mind back to a calm state of, yeah, that's meeting me where I'm at. It's like, no, I don't need to go where Prabhupada went. He's secure. He knows what he's saying is absolutely true. I'm obviously not there yet, so I don't need to be speaking in that way with anyone necessarily. But the way that I related was, oh, okay, yeah. Part of being a devotee, a huge, strong part for sure, is the ability to be in other people's worlds. So that's like, okay, and you did that, and then I appreciated like your joy and excitement that you felt the space to share. And then this is my understanding, and it's gives a lower potential for conflict, because, well, you've entered their world, and then you're just sharing, I have a different understanding, and then maybe they want to hear more about that or not. And I kind of just appreciated like the humbleness qualities of a devotee and the listening qualities of the devotee were all in your story very strong, and I was very inspired. And yeah, and just it helped my blood pressure come down from the experience I was having in the conversation with Prabhupada. So
Yes,
that I
thanks.
wanted to share.
Thanks. Like, yeah, like you are maybe experiencing your heart becoming soft by the process of Krishna consciousness. So uh, you really experience that. Yeah, and like Prabhupada sees through. He sees through. So he is in our world. He does not need to like do this sort of like external process to like, you know, maybe ask an open-ended question, like reflect what the person says, like create trust and understanding, because Prabhupada knows what to say, what to reply to like each person, so that it will support him or her in her Krishna consciousness. So yeah, like and even like by like creating like a sense of conflict and like disturbance, one can come to Krishna better than just through this like understanding, and like we like hug each other at the end. Like yes.
Prabhupada knows our hearts. He knows our hearts, and so yeah, and I get like that. What you're saying is he's clear and intentional. It's not like, oh, he's whimsically sharing wherever. He doesn't know where these people are at. No, he knows their hearts, and he's choosing to go and share where he's choosing to go and share. And that if it creates conflict, it's like, yeah, like he's ready to handle that. He probably thinks that's good for them, or knows that's good for them somehow. It's like, yeah, to make those distinctions, that's very helpful for me somehow, like that. Like he, yeah, and so like, yeah. Like I feel very vulnerable in my insecurity. Prabhupada's completely secure to go wherever. If there's conflict or whatever, then yeah, that's like no problem.
Yeah, and
I'm just in this conversation, I'm thinking like the distinction between following and imitating. That like,
yeah,
we want to follow the example and the principle of Prabhupada by cultivating joyful enthusiasm to share bhakti yoga and Krishna consciousness everywhere and anywhere. And we don't want to imitate, because Prabhupada's he's obviously at a platform of realization that we're not. So he might share with someone, as Yogesvara said, and they're going to naturally, not necessarily accept or agree, but they're going to trust him at a deeper level. And for us to begin to build some trust, as Yogesvara is sharing, empathic listening, ask some questions. But Prabhupada, through his purity, he doesn't necessarily need to go through all those steps, because from his purity, people are just going to like trust, like, wow, this person really cares about. This isn't like a false ego thing. Whereas if I try to go to different places, look, I'm preaching to you, or something like that. So we want to follow, and careful not to foolishly imitate.
yes, and like, although as you share the Bhakta Devan, like what came to me is like being sincere in our sharing. Like if someone asks me, oh, okay, do you really believe that like Krishna's picture is non-different from Krishna? And I would say like, yes, because I'm this great devotee, right? I'm there, you know. Maybe it's not the best way, because like at least we want to like try to be sincere. We're like because they will resonate with the qualities we show up. So I can respond, okay, like I don't really believe it, but I'm at least trying to, or at least that's like the philosophy that Prabhupada gives. The philosophy says, like Krishna is not different from his picture, and I want to feel it. I want to have trust in it. I'm in the process, but I don't really trust it or believe it just yet, and that might like create more like conductive thing than just saying like, yeah, that's the philosophy, and we are here. Like, yes.
Yeah, you're communicating about being honest, vulnerable, about sharing where you're at, and I appreciate trust in the process. Like I can relate. Like, okay, yeah, well, I have enough trust in the process that at least like logically or something, yeah, I get that's true. I did not realize like the difference between states and stages conversation like that. Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. Like that you're indicating you have faith in the process, and that this is where the process leads to seeing the non-difference, to experiencing the non-difference.
Yeah, sometimes I think in terms of realization, or communicate in terms of realization, that you can say, okay, philosophically, this makes sense to me. I have very little realization about Krishna being non-different from his picture. At the same time, I have more realization than I had 10 years ago, and more realization than I had 20 or 30 years ago. And I have very little realization. So you're not talking to someone with a lot of realization about Krishna is non-different. But at the same time, I have enough realization to feel inspired conviction that this process, to whatever small extent I follow it, this process does give me an experience of realization of these principles, including Prabhupada and Krishna being non-different from their picture. I don't have much realization, but enough to know that the process works.
I'm also really kind of concerned a little bit more now, hearing the part of the conversation, is being reminded that, oh, there are these people that let their picture be put on the altar, and like, what is their, where is their philosophical, like, what is their grounding? Like, what is their, like, where are they coming from to say, yeah, like, it's okay to put my, like, you should do this, you know, because it's not, maybe it's coming from their interpretation of what Prabhupada gave, but then when in our conversation, I'm hearing there's nowhere where Prabhupada says to do that. There's nowhere where Prabhupada says to do that. Like that, then I'm just going like, well, how can that be happening? It must be demonic. I mean, I don't want to be offensive, but that's what my mind's thinking. It must be demonic. And then I'm going, yeah, well, look, I'm demonic like every day, all over the place. So, okay, why is that surprising? But it's just kind of sad and painful to go like, okay, this is what's happening. Devotees are defending that position, and some are saying, yeah, well, I think I'm doing Prabhupada's system, and maybe they can defend it or not in some way. And others are saying, yeah, maybe it's not Prabhupada's system, but this is what I'm doing. And then it's like, well, okay, that's what you're doing, you know, there's Prabhupada's system, and then there's what you're doing. But the real deviation, I don't know if that's the right word, is like, no, we're saying we're doing Prabhupada's system, and this is what it is and looks like. It's just, like, okay, well, then like, I'm not like, well, oh, well, there is that argument. No, it's like, I don't even know what that argument is. Well, there is that argument. It's like, I don't hear that there's really any argument to consider, you know, for that basis. Like, this is Prabhupada's system, and it's, these other pictures are added and pranams are added. It's like, where's that great argument? I just don't even, it's not in my head. I can't even like consider it. So it's just kind of depressing.
Yes, yes. Thanks for that. Yeah, it's like it is depressing for me too. Yeah, it's like my like my goal is to like present Prabhupada's process. So I'm trying to follow Prabhupada's process. I have a sense what is a Prabhupada process, and I share Prabhupada's process. And if someone has a different process, then he has a different process, and I don't really care. Like, because so many people follow so many processes. So I have my faith that I chose the best process I kind of know of. So that I'm trying to follow it, and like you are following maybe like a different process. So you follow this process. I may try to like explain my perspective and maybe even point out why I think your process is flawed. Maybe in the end, like I will keep following my process unless I'm like defeated or proven wrong. That's fine. But you know, in the end, like, yeah. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I appreciate that approach. Yeah, like I'm not gonna. I'll tend to not to try to show that someone else's process is deviant unless they're open, and sometimes that openness comes from questioning, building trust, and then at the same time, if someone's saying explicitly or implicitly that the process that Prabhupada established is incomplete, wrong, okay, then I'm ready to then I'm ready to respond to that. I'm ready to fiercely establish that what Prabhupada established is complete and perfect. It's definitely a complete and perfect process. Okay. Now but here's this other thing that, okay, let's look at it. Let's look at it philosophically. Let's look at it in the framework of Prabhupada's teachings. And if it's something about pictures on the altar, okay, well, maybe if it's for you to determine whether that person is a pure devotee. If you're saying he or she isn't, well, yeah, that's a deviation from what Prabhupada taught. It's the golden calf parampara. Hare Krishna.
Thanks for letting me jump in the conversation. I had my video off and I'm preparing to go to work, and I'm gonna just listen to whatever's left and turn my video off, and I appreciate you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, are there any questions, sharing realizations at this point? Okay, thank you all for your presence, for your engagement. And I will read the verse once more. When the Lord displayed his activities just suitable for childhood, he was visible only to the residents of Vrindavan. Sometimes he would cry and sometimes laugh, just like a child, and when so doing, he would appear like a lion cub. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Haribo.